No. All praises to the Creator, y'all. Um, you know that I am all about studying and showing myself to prove the Creator, y'all. I begin to pray. Today, earlier, I attended as a guest on a fellow brother Israelite teacher's channel, and we began to discuss about the lion pen of the scribes, and we began to discuss about the adding to and taking away of the scriptures. And the brothers felt like I was reading for my own belief and not what the research gives. So the research that I go into is I studied the Masoretic, but I also studied the Zodak. I also studied the prophets and what the prophet says. So I remembered, this is why I'm doing this right now. I remembered that the Creator Yah is punishing a majority of the Levites because they stopped following his law, statutes, commandments, and that the only ones who will be allowed back into the Holy of Holies will be the line of Zodak, who stuck by David and stuck by the true law. So let's go prove that the Zodak were telling you that they lied and added in animal sacrifice. Based on the provided non-Christian modern sources, including the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Tanakh, Daniel's vegetarian was a strict adherence to dietary laws to avoid defilement, whereas the Essene advocates for a plant-based diet to return to the pre-flood state. Daniel vegetarian diet. Why Daniel chose the diet? Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the king's meat, wine, Daniel 1 and 8. This was largely to avoid eating food that was likely not kosher, sacrificed to Babylon idols, and not prepared according to the Levitical laws. Now, laws followed. Daniel was adhering to the Torah laws on clean and unclean, and strictly prohibited against eating meat containing blood, which is a major factor in Gentile non-sacrificial diet, the vegetarian food. The Hebrew term used for pulse vegetables is hazaroim in Daniel 1:12, which literally translates to sown things, meaning food grown from seeds, such as beans, grains, lentils, not just vegetables. The results: after 10 days, Daniel and his friends appeared better by the fatter in flesh, healthier than those eating the king's meat. Dead Sea Scrolls, DDS, the Essenes perspective. Daniel fragments. The Dead Sea Scrolls include 8 manuscripts of Daniel, including 1Q71, providing the book was in its current form in the 2nd century BCE. The Essene view on meat. The Essenes, the sect at the Quran. Now, these are the people that are in the Dead Sea Scroll. Viewed the Temple of Jerusalem as polluted and held that animal slaughter for food was not ideal. Argued that the true original diet commanded in Genesis was plant-based. 4Q41, the 10 Commandments. The 4Q41 Deuteronomy fragment is a highly preserved scroll of Deuteronomy from the 1st century BCE that provides variations in the 10 Commandments, supporting that the early text different from the modern standard Hebrew text. Wilderness diet and punishment. No meat in the wilderness. The children of Israel were in the wilderness, and it was understood that meat was intended only for sacrifices, yet they lacked livestock and demanded meat. While Yah punished them, they were punished for not just wanting food, but for expressing lack of faith, murmuring against the Yah and Moses, expressing desire to return to Egypt, captivity. Comparison in the text: seed sown, Zara, Hazara, Daniel. It means sown things. Community rule. often stresses the purity of food and the necessity to keep the sons of light from being polluted by the sons of darkness. The War Scrolls focus on the end time battle but does not mention Hazaro in that context. Zodaks and Essenes. Zodaks. The Zodak priests were legitimate priest line. The sect of Quran, likely the Essenes, claimed to be the rightful Zodak priests who went into hiding exile because they perceived the Jerusalem temple was defiled by non-Zodak priests, the Hasmoneans. They saw themselves as the sons of Zodak and the sons of light. The Maccabees and Meat, 2 Maccabees 7, recorded a mother and her 7 sons being tortured and killed rather than eat pork, pig meat, which was forced upon them to make them break the laws of their father's Torah. Ezekiel and the priests. Ezekiel 44 scribes the prophecies where only the Levites who are the Zodak seed, the seed of the Zodak, will be allowed to serve in the temple and come near the inner holy places, while the other Levites who went astray will be restricted to a lower service. So the Essenes, the sons of Zodak, you can find that in Ezekiel 44. They're the only ones that will be allowed in the Holy of Holies in the reset after y'all come back. And the Zodites, priests, were the legitimate priestly line. The sect of the Quran, like the Essene, claimed to be the rightful Zodak priests who went into hiding and exile because they perceived Jerusalem temple as a defiled non-Zodak priest. The Hasmoneans, they saw themselves as sons of Zodak and the true sons of light. Now, okay. Because the guy told me he read the entire DDS, the Dead Sea Scroll. So I went back and looked in it because remember I showed you that the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Essene says that we're not supposed to kill any animals at all whatsoever. No animals. We ain't supposed to be doing it. The Dead Sea Scrolls, the DDS, in the historical context of the Second Temple period, reveal a deep conflict over the priesthood, diet, and the true interpretation of the Torah. So, veganism as a safe zone, since they could not guarantee the meat purity, vegetables, C+, were the only safe food that could not be ritually defiled by idolatry and improper slaughter. They would not eat the meat. Those the Hebrew martyrs refused to eat swine flesh, pork, and meat sacrificed to idols. They chose death rather than transgress the law of our fathers. Eating the king meat was a public sign of submitting to Hellenism, the Greek culture, and rejecting Yahweh's covenant. Eleazar the scribe, he refused to even pretend to eat meat, arguing that deceiving the youth was as bad as eating as the act itself. The wilderness meat greed punishment. Yahweh provided manna, a perfect spiritual food, bread from heaven. Why punishment? The people asked for meat out of lust, in gratitude, rejecting Yahweh's provision to return to the flesh pots of Egypt. The result, Yah sent quail, but while the meat was yet in between their teeth, the plague struck them, and the place was named Kibarath Havat, graves of craving. The punishment was for rebellious spirit and the lack of trust, not merely for eating. The Essenes, the Zodak, and the Genesis diet. The Essenes often identified with the Qumran community who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls, were likely led by the sons of Zodak priests. Animal slaughter. The historic Essene Qumran generally rejected the animal sacrifice of Jerusalem temple because they believed the temple was polluted by illegitimate priesthood, the Hasmoneans. Genesis diet. The argument that animal slaughter was added by humans and we must return to the Genesis 129 diet fruit seeds is most famously found in the Essene Gospel of Peace, a text published in the 1930s by Edmund Sakeli, widely considered a modern fabrication. However, the historical Essenes were strict about purity and may have avoided meat to maintain the high level of ritual holiness, mimicking the state of Adam and the priest in the temple. Zodak versus Levite. Zodak. The sons of Zodak remained faithful when Israel went astray. Only they could enter the sanctuary, approach Yahweh's table, and offer fat and Levites. Because they ministered to idols, they were demoted. They could only serve at the gates but could not approach the Holy of Holies. Are they the same? Yes. The priest figures in the Dead Sea Scroll, like the teachers of righteousness, are widely identified as the Zodak priests who went into hiding, exile at Qumran after being usurped by the Hasmoneans. The Hasmoneans, wicked scribe, the Hasmoneans, Maccabees were a priestly family of the line of Joreb Levites, but they were not Zodak. The usurping, they took the high priest by force and political dealing, which the Zodak viewed as a violation of the Creator's covenant. Canaanite lineage. The Hasmoneans were ethnic Judean Levites. However, the Dead Sea Scrolls pressure Habak called the Hasmonean leaders the wicked priests who walked in the ways of drunkenness and pollution, and the accusation of being Canaanite in the scrolls is often spiritual, but adopted Greek customs, hoarding wealth, polluting the temple. They acted like the nations, the Canaanites, rather than the holy priests. There is no historical evidence they had literal Canaanite blood, but they were accused of polluting the holy seed of the priesthood. Linguistic analysis. The vegetable, the thing sown, seed, offering, lineage, semen sowing. See her, my vision, I don't have my glasses. Uniquely in the form of Daniel 1:2, uses the Greek equivalent. Fragments presents parts of Daniel. Used as seed of Aaron, priest, or seed of the true. Used as seed of David and seed of light. 1QS community rule uses Zerah primarily to establish spiritual and priestly hierarchy, the seed of Aaron, who ruled the community. Its focus on the holy seed versus the men of pet. Uses Zerah in military messianic context. It speaks of the seed of David, particularly in the final war. Conclusion. The specific dietary word horizontal vegetable is absent from the Sectarian Scrolls 1Q. The Essenes focus heavily on Zerah lineage purity, not as vegetable diet word in the rule book. Go into captivity, grow your own food. In Jeremiah 29, 5-7, build ye houses and dwell in them, and plant gardens and eat the fruit of them. Yahweh commands that the exiles to settle in Babylon and eat fruit of their gardens. Vegetation implied a stable, agrarian life, even in captivity. Visual contains 10 commandments. Describes the Zodak leader in strict purity laws. Describes the war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness. Would you like to add a seed of Aaron? No. So, based on this, based on the specific interpretation framework you are using, connection, Jeremiah 22, I did not speak concerning burnt offerings. With Jeremiah 8:8, the line pen of the scribes has handled it falsely. The conclusion is yes. In this view, the wicked scribes are those who altered the original Torah to insert Levitical sacrifice system, leading the people back to the flesh pots of Egypt rather than the Genesis diet, vegetables and manna. The line pen, Jeremiah 8:8, and the Hasmoneans, who were they? In the Dead Sea Scrolls, the seeker of smooth things, often identified as Pharisees and scribes. and the wicked priests, Hasmoneans high priests, are accused of twisting the Torah for profit and power. The accusation: if Yahweh said, I never commanded sacrifices, Jeremiah 7:22, then the hundreds of laws in Levitical regarding animal slaughter must have been added by the lying pen of the scribes to justify a priesthood that fed on flesh. The punishment: by enforcing a meat-based sacrifice cult, these scribes caused Israel to sin. The Hasmoneans were famous for their wealth, military conquest, assumption of both kindling and priestly titles, eating the fat of the land, while the sons of Zodak, Essenes, withdrew to the desert. The wilderness verdict, number 11. The test: Yahweh gave them manna, grain, seed from heaven. The rebellion people demanded flesh. The sentence: Yahweh gave them what they asked for, quail, but punished them with a very great plague while the meat was still in their teeth. The lesson: the Essene vegetarian argument sees this as a defining moment. Meat eating brings death. The lying scribes later tried to normalize meat eating by inventing a sacrificial law to make the sin of eating flesh appear holy. The scroll evidence conflict text. This is where the Dead Sea Scrolls shows a complex internal battle between the true and false priesthood. The Damascus Documents, CD, accuses Jerusalem priests of kindling Yahweh's altar in vain and polluting the sanctuary. It restricts meat eating to very specific purity conditions: no blood, fat. The Temple Scrolls. This is the longest scroll found. Interestingly, it does list animal sacrifice, vegetarian counter argument. Proponents of the Essene vegetarian view argue that the Temple Scroll represented ideals law, perhaps to a text of Quran community studied by superseded with their community rule, which replaced animal sacrifices with what? Prayer as the sweet fragrance. 1Q945, Q4Q MMT, Helladic letter. The Zodaks argued that the Jerusalem priests were mixing animal fluids improperly slaughtered and rendering meat unclean. Daniel as a prototype. Daniel rejected the king meat, which represents the corruption, sacrificial system of the nation of Babylon. The return to seed and vegetables. He was not being healthy. He was refusing to practice in the corrupt altar system. Results: he had knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. Daniel 1:17. Proving that the vegetable diet restored the spiritual clarity lost by the flesh eaters. Conclusion: in this specific lineage of thought, the righteous Zodak Daniel eat seeds, vegetable, obey the pre-Sinai Genesis law, and reject flesh cult. The wicked Hasmonean scribes uses a lying pen to fabricate laws demanding blood sacrifice, justifying their gluttony and violations of the command to go build houses and plant gardens, to Jeremiah 29. Would you like to look at specific fragment where the Essenes explicitly accuse Jerusalem priests of mixing animal fluid and blood improperly? Excuse me. In the Stone Edition, dietary laws are defined by external physical traits and ritual preparations, where the Community rule shifts the focus to social and spiritual separation. Comparison, the key dietary frameworks. Source of law. Stone additions are not grounded in the written Torah. It focuses on distinction between clean and unclean based on hooves and chewing of the cud. Community rule extended the laws included purity of the source. Food is not just about animal type, but who touches it. The pure meal of the many was restricted to those who had undergone years of purification to eat the food of men. The men of deceit was a form of ritual defilement. Terminology in Hebrew roots. Hazarazo, this refers to seed impulse as a tactical bypass of the king's defiled meat. Zera, while the Tanakh uses zera for agriculture season, human offspring, often uses it metaphorically to describe the holy seed of the community, a group sown by the Creator to be a plant of truth. The concept of Sarah and song. The community is the eternal plantation. The word for song is linked to their identity as a separate people, unlike the Tanakh's broader permission for meat consumption provided it properly slaughtered. The Essene's perspective in the 1QS prioritized the spiritual state of the person preparing and consuming the food. Textual presence of dietary words. Daniel, explicitly to denote vegetarian diet of a seed vegetable, does not explicitly mandate vegetarian diet for all, but uses language of separation and holiness to create a priestly lifestyle that frequently results in simplified aesthetic eating to avoid contamination outside. So there's a internal warrior between the Essenes, aka the Zodaks, and between the ones who overtook them and warred with them. So I am going to stick with the vegetarian diet because, number one, Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were saved. Daniel was saved in lion den. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was saved in the fiery pit. Number two, the point I have in the future prophecy, only the Zodak, the Essenes, will be allowed in the Holy of Holies. The other, you can read this in Ezekiel, the other Levites will be outside the gate. They will not be allowed in. They will not be allowed in the Holies of Holies. So based on this information, based on the Dead Sea Scroll, based on it, I am going to go with the Zodak because they're going to get to go in the Holy of Holies. I'm going to keep vegetarian. I'm going to believe Yah when he says I never taught it. I'm going to believe Yah when he got angry. I'm going to believe Yah when he says killing the bull is like killing a man. I'm going to believe Yah when he says that we're going to go back to clean pots. I'm going to believe Yah when he says the animals will not be eating any flesh. I'm going to believe Yah that he says he never changed. I'm going to believe the Creator Yah. Now, as for me and my house, I will serve the Creator Yah, and I will serve him in the examples that he's given me and provided me in his prophets, where he showed that the righteous people will get reward. They get reward as they stood, and they got reward in the end. Daniel was rewarded throughout his entire captivity. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was rewarded throughout their captivity. When Yah told us to go into Babylon, he told us to build our houses and grow gardens. He did not tell us to grow gardens and get animals. He said, grow gardens. I'm going to go by his words, and that I will stand on his words and his words only. I do not worship at the feet of men. I do not listen to the do listen to the wicked pen of the scribe, I will go with Yah says. He said they voided his Torah in Psalms 119, in Psalms 59. I'm sorry, in Isaiah 59 and Isaiah 26. He said they lied. They were liars and they are doing human rituals. I am going to go with the vegetarian diet. And again, as for me and my house, I serve Yah. You can do what you want, but I choose the proof. All praise to the Creator Yah and Him alone. Hallelujah. Woo!